So Refuah Shlema should be Refuah Shlema for Ruvain ben Bilha, and also for Yonatan Moshe ben Sima Avigal b'toch shar kol cholei Amo Yisrael. Baruch Hashem, a great occasion, getting together on Chanukah, the first night of Chanukah, to learn Breslov Torah, to learn Hasidic Torah. It's a very special occasion to be able to do such a thing. So what we're going to do is that first we're going to do a piece from Shem Shmuel, and then hopefully if we have enough time we'll get to Rav Natan. There's a tremendous chus in coming together in a time like this to learn Torah, especially in a time during Chanukah where we know that the Yevanim, they were trying to darken our eyes to put away the light of Torah. So just to get together, especially to learn Torah of the Talmid Baal Shem Tov, of Chasidus, of Breslov Torah, it's a tremendous zchut. Usually the custom is we start with a little song. So let's sing a nigun. Hopefully this nigun will help to open our neshamas a little bit, so hopefully we can take in the Torah. Okay. So first of all, this should be Beit Kashrut in connection to all the true tzaddikim that are alive and with us, and all the tzaddikim that have passed on, specifically Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fege Zechutam Yagen Olenu V'al Kol Yisrael Amen. So it says over here in the Shem Shmuel, the first piece of Chanukah, Hine Yadua Shezayin Kanei Menorah Romazim Lezayin Midot V'Hashem V'Aor Romazim L'Chachma Hashofat El Midot, that we know that the 7 branches of the menorah, the Beis Hamikdash, that symbolizes like the 7 midos of a person. Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, all the different characteristics that we have. V'Hashemen, the oil and the or, symbolizes the Chachma, the wisdom that has an influence on the midot. She Chachmat Torah. And this is the wisdom of the Torah, Doraita, Mechachma Ilah Nafkat, that we know that Torah comes from a divine source of wisdom, from supernal wisdom. V'hi shofat ala midos lezakachan uletaron sheyatku metiva nagashmi, that this hashba, this influence that comes upon the midot is for the purpose of purifying it, and that it should remove it from its physical coarse nature. Until that a person can be mashpia so much through the power of the Torah onto his midos that he does not desire anymore anything physical. Rak hakol al pi Torah, that the only thing that he desires is the Torah, meaning it's a refined taste, just like when it comes to, let's say, wine, lahavdil. When you have wine, when a person starts, he drinks a little wine here and there. He can't really tell, the ones that are, there's wines that are bitter, they're dry, he doesn't really appreciate it. So he can't really tell the difference. But the person starts, let's say he hangs around the wine more, he sips it, and he starts smelling it. After a while, they say there's a refined taste that a person starts picking up a taste for the quality of the wine, right? And they say it's the same thing, on a certain level. It's a mashal when it comes to ruchnius. A person doesn't necessarily desire things of kedusha. A person comes to this world. We have a nefesh bahamis. The Baal Tanya says we have an animal soul. That's half of what exists inside of us. The other half is the nefesh alokit, is the godly soul. So sometimes we up the volume of the nefesh bahamit that we're walking around most of the day. That we're sort of very self-centered, because the Yetzer Hara, which is the nefesh bahamit, is its source. It's about itself. It's always seeking to fulfill itself. So it's constantly looking what taiva could it get into, and what ego could it express. The nefesh elokit is a whole different thing. It has to do with the Yetzer Tov, has to do with serving something, a creator that's beyond, and having goals that's just beyond the physical realm, right? So a Jew has to refine himself. It doesn't come easy. A person doesn't necessarily just crave like to put on tefillin or to like learn a page of Gemara. It's not necessarily natural, but it's a refined taste. Meaning, the more one associates himself with kedusha, the more he starts to actually yearn for it, and he actually starts to desire it. Sometimes a person, has so much going on in his life, so many distractions, that he's like, what? I wish I could just put everything aside and just learn a little Gemara, just like straighten myself out, or do some hitzbodedut or some tefillah, just to talk to Hashem, just to like really straighten things out. So things like that have to do with a certain refining of the soul. Right? This is influencing the midot, just like the shemen was on top of the 7 branches of the menorah. The 7 branches symbolize our characteristics, right? The things our character makeup, and the shemen sits on top of it. So too, when it comes to the power of the Torah and Hashem's wisdom, if we let that settle on the soul, eventually it's mashpia. It has an effect on the qualities. V'zehu rak bekoch haTorah. This is only done through the power of the Torah. De chachma ilah nafkat, that it comes from a supernal wisdom. Uktiv, it says in Tehillim, kulam bechachma asita, that Hashem, you have created everything with your chachma. V'amru zal, and it says, Chazal say over there, hebit beTorah ubara et ha'olam, that Hashem looked into the Torah and He created the world. Al kain, therefore, yesh bekoach haTorah leshanot teva hamidot memahutan shenivruhu kacha. So if we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu first created the Torah, and He looked into the Torah when he wanted to create the world, so therefore we see that the Torah has, it's sort of a blueprint of creation, that the Torah affects how the structure of the makeup, how it exists in Olam Hazeh. So therefore, he makes a conclusion, right? The Shem Shmuel says that the Torah has the power, since Hashem created the world through it, the Torah has the power to change the nature and that midah, that quality, right, that it was created with. Let's say a person's created with a certain quality. He has anger, let's say. Right? A person could get angry. The Heilige Rebbe, Rabbi Nachman, says that anger is mamish, a very destructive quality, we know, but not only that it could chas v'shalom, it could affect parnasa in a tremendous way. In the Likutei Moharan, the Rebbe says that the element of parnasa comes from the element of heat, the element of anger also comes from the element of heat. So, and he says it's a simon. A lot of times, a person, let's say from divine, from the heavens, they want to bestow upon a person a certain abundance, shefa of parnasa. They'll give the person a test of anger, right? That if a person can, withhold himself and not get angry, that same heat will be transferred into parnasa. But if the person opens the faucet, so to speak, of anger, and he lets the wrath out, then it's challenged, it channeled out in the wrong direction. So it's mamish a thing that mamish we need to be able to harness that quality of anger and to be able to be balanced. So let's say a person's born, he says, yeah, but you know what, Rabbi, I'll tell you, I think I'm more angry than any other person in the world. I just feel anger inside of me. So we know. So there was people in history that came towards the Torah before they started learning. They were mamish, like the lowest of the low. We know the Gemara has stories of Reish Lakish, Lamashal, right? Reish Lakish was like a gangster. He was mamish like a criminal before he came to learn. It says in the Gemara that whoever's name is mentioned in the Gemara, right, had to be so holy, had to be such a tzaddik and a makubal, right, on such a high level that even if somebody died, that he would have the ability in his prayers to actually bring that person, he could daven that person, and he could bring through his tefillahs that Hashem should bring him back to life. So, and a lot of times you have a quote in the Gemara and it doesn't mention the Rebbe's name. Why does it mention his name? Because he didn't have the power of Techiyat HaMeitim. Only somebody that had the power of Techiyat HaMeitim, his name must be in Gemara. So Reish Lakish, that was an ex-gangster, a criminal, his name is all over Shas. Left, right, how could it be? A guy's mamish coming from crime, and he's like on the level of being such a makubal, such a kaddish tzaddik. Yeah, because he had that, but he just had to reharness that energy, that potential that he had. Instead of putting it into crime, he put his effort to fight the wars of Torah, to understand what the Torah is talking about, back and forth with the chavrusa. Rabbi Yochanan was his chavrusa, it says that the famous story where he saw him across the river and Rabbi Yochanan looked, he looked actually a little feminine. He had big eyelashes. It says so Reish Lakish thought he was a woman. So he mamish runs and he jumps over the river because he thought it was a attractive looking woman. And then as he's landing, Rabbi Yochanan looks up and he says, "Wow, what strength! Halavayit should be used for Torah." And then he lands and he realizes that it's a guy, and he was like, what beauty! Halavayit should have been used for a woman. So basically, they made a deal together that if you come to the Beis Medrash and you take upon yourself to learn every single day, he says, I'll arrange that you could marry my sister, and she has even more beauty than me. So he right away he agreed. Love surpasses all. So then, he agreed to learn. Many questions you could bring up on that story is that, first of all, just you to ask the guy to come to the Beis Medrash to learn every day, right away you guarantee that he should marry your sister. Come on, the guy's a gangster, Lamaisa. He's mamish a gangster. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't he went to Or Sameach for a few years, he straightened out. No, he was mamish, his hands were still full of blood. So the word is that Rabbi Yochanan had a power to see, he had a vision, and he saw that he had tremendous potential. Yeah, he was in crime, but he saw that his neshama had tremendous potential, just like we all do. That if it plugs into Torah, why? Because the Torah has the power to not only to influence us, it could actually change our nature, it could reharness things, it could rebalance things. Why? Because you could say, but my teva, my nature is this. So yeah, but the Torah can change this. Since HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world through the Torah, so we see that there's an underlying, there's veins, there's channels going through the world that is the Torah. So if we tap into that, we could rechannel ourselves, we could change ourselves. It has a tremendous potential. So he says over here, Ki af sheyada ha'adam. One line above, first word of the line. Umuvan me'elav shelachachma hativ'it ein koach zeh leshanot hamidot me'amuzan. And one thing that we have to know is that when it comes to just nature, to wisdom of just pure nature, it doesn't have this potential to completely change the midot from its essence, so to speak. If you want to go the natural path, you can work on yourself somewhat, but you can't completely transform yourself into something else. Ki af sheyada ha'adam veyaskil hetiv bechachma hativit. Even though that person knows and he understands well with his wisdom, with his, let's say, understanding in the way of nature, right? that he comes to the conclusion, right? Like even mamish, the nations of the world, people can make a conclusion that it's not befitting to run after certain desires like this, right? It's not. We should be more refined, right? And there's such a thing, teachings of ethics and philosophy, mikol makom. But nevertheless, when it's just in the realm of pure secular wisdom, mikol makom haruach hativit, the spirit of nature, of physicality, eineno mishtanet mikamo shahaita. It doesn't completely change from its nature, its essence that it was before. Meaning you could sit and philosophize, but you might still have those same characteristics. He's saying very likely you will have those characteristics. Even though that sometimes the power of intellect could rule over, right? Hasechel hativi, the natural power of intellect. We're not talking about Torah, we're not talking about anything spiritual, just pure seichel, just pure logic, philosophizing, talking about ethics. Maybe even if you see sometimes it can have some effect, right? Limnoa mitavazu, to prevent from a certain temptation. He says, nevertheless, mikol makom hatava hanatua belev b'makoma omedet. Nevertheless, right, this temptation, this desire is still implanted, is still placed in the heart in its original place. Kemosh Sifru al Aristo. This is what they said that they used to say about the philosopher Aristotle, Rosh HaPhilosophim, right? The head of all the philosophers. Shehu ba'atzmo chiber sefer hamidot, that he made himself a book of ethics, right? V'yovin b'seichel enoshi shebo kama garua hu ba'al taiva, that he writes in his ethics that how disgusting it is that a person follows after the dictates of his heart, after desire. Umikol makom, but nevertheless, we see that mate that he actually died from what? Mechole shala libotina, that he had a certain resentment and a certain hatred for a certain individual, and that digged into his heart so much that it actually killed him. Right? It says other things also that he was completely, at certain times he was just like drawn after complete desire, in very disgusting ways, in mamish disgusting ways. It's not kedai to repeat right here. But so when they asked him, they said, "Hey, but don't you write in your ethics, in your Sefer Hamidot, don't you write that a person shouldn't be acting in such a fashion?" And he said, "Yeah, but that's like Aristotle's philosophy, and this is mamish, this is me, So that's the thing. It's very hard when it comes to nature, when it comes to using our seichel, just bederech teva, to really transform ourselves. V'hinei hayavanim shaltu oz al Yisrael. We know that the Yavanim, they were ruling over the Jewish people at that time. V'kol magamatam la'ashkicham toratecha. Their whole mission was, let's get the Yidden to forget Torah. That's the mission. Conduct yourself according to logic. Talk logic. Don't talk any hocus pocus. Don't talk any Hashem, Eibishter, Neshama, Nefesh Ruach Neshama, Zohar, this, that, mumbo jumbo. Just pure logic. Give me logic. As people out there, Rahman San, also some Jews have gotten stuck in this sort of path of mamish. There's people out there that want to rationalize and explain who's the author of the Zohar and how it's it's not necessarily something divine and all these things that have to do with spirits and olam haba, and this is all just and some of them could actually could actually come with the appearance of I'm I think this is Judaism, this is Orthodox Judaism, and it's mamish scary, they don't believe in a major chelek of Yiddishkeit. And you should know one thing, and this is very hard for me to swallow, because you should know I'm Sephardi, and I'm mamish. We're very davik to the Rambam, and in general, whatever the Rambam says, mamish, gold, but and the Arizal said, he said with regard to the Rambam that you should know he corresponds to the left pea of Moshe Rabbeinu. The right pea symbolizes the Ramban, the left pea is the Rambam. So then all of a sudden, Rabbeinu comes and he says that, first of all, I don't believe that the Rizal said that. And secondly, he said that he started mamish saying these things, with regarding, the Rambam. It's true that he wrote an excellent, and he uses the word excellent when it comes to halachic work. He says, however, this is so hard for me to swallow. He says, however, when it comes to his philosophy, he was mistaken. And certain things, and he says, praiseworthy is the eye that does not see such writings. Like, for example, Mor and Avuchim. Like, in general, you should know Rabbi Nachman's mamish. Like, you should learn everything. Everything's beautiful. Everything's gavaldik. All Hasidus, all Musar, this, that. There's just one area he puts his foot down when it's dealing with philosophy, with this type of philosophy of questioning, doubting. Like, he says, there's so many sveikas that a person could hit, and sometimes the answers, they could sound like weaker for the individual, and he might not hear the answer as well as the question that's presented to him. They could be that he didn't even have those questions to begin with, and he starts learning philosophy, and all of a sudden those questions, they start rattling around one's mind, and mamish, he says, this all comes from the nachash, the beginning of time, and it's there just to confuse us, and he says we have to mamish move away from such things. Even if it's Jewish, it doesn't matter. He says it's very damaging to the soul. And he says the Sachat Shavar says, Reb Shem Shmuel says, that this was the angle of the Greeks. Mamish, that things have to make sense logically. If it's not mamish logical, it has nothing to do. There's no spiritual realm. So we're dealing with nature. We're dealing with man's instincts. Right, the image of Atlas, which is man, holding up the world, like everything's in my hands, like it's all in my hands. It has nothing to do, with what do? We spin the dreidel. We're like, what are you talking about, buddy? You're like, it all comes from above. It's mamish, everything's spinning around. Everything's coming from like up there. You know what I'm saying? So we have to realize. So he says over here, "Va'af shechibru gamkein svarim b'Torah tamidot." You should know that even the Greeks, they wrote books that have to do with refining characteristics. He says you should know that truth is, the Sachat Shavar says that there were certain sparks from holiness that fell into the Greeks. Right? So in some of their writings you could sit there and be like, wow, this is like, you can mamish, you can see some tremendous things in there. Why? Because some sparks of Kedusha fell from what time? Shenoflu b'shvir sekelim, when shvir sekelim took place, like
breaking of the vessels, right?
Breaking of the vessels, when let's just go from the part, let's say Lamashal, like when Adam ate from the tree, right? When the sparks were separated and were scattered all over the world, right? As opposed to being in its proper vessels, right? Has to do with also the way Hashem created the world. There was sparks of Hashem's light, kiviyachal, that sort of scattered and wasn't contained in the original vessel that it was supposed to be contained. So some of these sparks fell also in the philosophy of the Greeks, right? De'im lo kain, because if it wasn't for this, lo haitzalhem chiyus klal, because if it didn't have such a thing, that they wouldn't have any chiyus whatsoever. We're in the last paragraph on the right side at the bottom of the page, and where the Shem Shmuel, the Sachat Shavar, is going to quote the Kisvei Arizal. Let's see. V'hinei b'Kisvei Arizal Hakadosh, it says over there, Eit asher shalat ha'adam ba'adam v'ralo. It says in the pasuk in Kohelet that the time will come where a man will rule over other men, l'ralo, that will be for his detriment. Meaning that somebody will rule over another person, but it'll be for his worse, right? Why? Meaning the person that's the ruler. What does this mean? Hainu dezeh sh'adam blial sholet ala adam dekdusha hularalo. This that we see that a person, let's say he forces himself to rule over another person, a person of holiness, right? It's for his detriment. Why? Right? L'ralo lo adam blial likach v'lahotzi mimenu chelkei hatov. Al Adam de Kedusha. Why? Because what happens? Because then the person that's holy, that's being ruled over, that's being oppressed by that person, the holy man can then draw, right, the sparks of holiness out of that individual. Right? When a tzaddik is being oppressed by a ruler, then what he can do when he's under his rulership, so he's mamish under him, he could extract the sparks of holiness that ruler has. That's what the Arizal says. Now, let's see what this has to do with anything. V'hayavanim sheshaltu az al Yisrael. So the Greeks that they ruled over the Jewish people, bekoach hachachma shebehem, with their power of chachma, of intellect and wisdom, right? Natural wisdom has to do with nature, not anything spiritual. That, but within it had sparks of holiness. It was for their detriment. Why? Just like we see that the Jewish people, when they went to Mitzrayim, that it says that they emptied out Mitzrayim. Right, meaning they took all the sparks of kedusha. They took not only the zav and the gold and all these things, but they took out mamish the sparks of holiness. He says the same thing when it came to Yavan, that the Jewish people were able to take out the holiness, the sparks of kedusha that was lost, that was scattering around in their philosophies. They were able to draw it out and bring it to the side of holiness. That's why it says in the Svarim, that it says, if you look at history, that from then on, after the Jewish people, after this whole episode of Chanuka, there wasn't like mamish such intense philosophy coming out of Greece anymore. It was like that was it. It was like, okay, that was the era of philosophy. Why did it end? Because the Jews sucked it out. They sucked out the kedusha. They took it out of the land, right? Then all of a sudden we're seeing like wisdom of like philosophy amongst the Jewish people. It's like it's booming all of a sudden. Until that, not only that, but look, all of Hasidus philosophy. Look at the way we're sitting around, what we're talking about. Mamish, all this talk, all this like the week after week, we come here, we learn Hasidus, like Rabbi Nachman, Mamish, like how much, like how to prove that Mamish in the darkness there's like Elokus, and you can always call out no matter what. And like this is intense, I was speaking to some some Litvish Yidden, that live and be well. We were talking, but like the conversation like on a certain level, I started to like mix in a little bit like the Kutim Aran, and they were just all like, whoa, like what that, like it was like a whole different type of like other wisdom. It's like it's intense. Like this stuff is like it's really powerful stuff. Like sometimes you see like certain guys, like I know like a guy in yeshiva, in a regular yeshiva like over here, that he's mamish holding in these svarim, like he's holding in the Arizal, this that, and he's like a a young guy. That's like it's amazing. You know what I mean? It's not normal, so to speak, right? But this is very powerful activity. So what all this shefa we drew out from sparks that were kiviyachol lost, and it was in Greek philosophy. We were able to pull it out, and now it came to the side of Jewish people. Now we can bring it within the realm of kedusha, right? So until that we can philosophize, we can ad she'avar agavul, that it can pass from the boundary. L'hoyer, to enlighten. Now, since it's coming from us, it can enlighten. Af b'mekomos hashafalim b'rshusa rabim. It can enlighten the dark areas in the public domain, in the reshusa rabim. And when in the times of the, like in the olden days, like in Eretz Yisrael, even now, where is one of the places one of the main places to light the menorah? Ideally, in the reshusa rabim. Right? To put it outside, there was like an inner door, that the door you actually come in the immediate home. But people used to light in the times of the Gemara. They used to light their menorah in the outer gate, the courtyard gate. That's mamish like by the street, like you have like a garden and there's a door, there's a gate over there. Chatzer. A chatzer. They used to light the menorah like mamish by that door, by the street in the Rishus Harabim in the dark. That's what's going on here. That's what he's saying, that we extracted such light that we were able to expand our level of chachma, that we can actually expand it now that it's coming from kedusha, that we can take it out of the boundary and move it into the darkness, in order to enlighten those areas. Shu makom achitzonim l'sameh et einayim, which is the area of the Sitra Achra, right, in order to blinden their eyes, right, of the forces of impurity, to bring that beaming light of the light of Chanukah. V'lekach mitzvat ner Chanukah la'nicha bershut harabim. Therefore, the mitzvah of lighting the menorah was specifically given to be lit in the Reshut Harabim. Now, ubezeh yesh lahaven pluktat Beit Shammai Beit Hillel. Now we can understand the machlokas between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. What's the machloket? Beit Shammai omrim pochet v'holech. We know the Beit Shammai holds that you light 8 the first night. The first night is like, all the lights there, and you start to take away, right? And the next night 7, then 6, right? Beit Hillel, right? Omrim mosif v'holech. He says that you add every night. Hainu, what does this mean? Kol echad lefi madrigato. Every person according to his level. Why? The Beit Hillel madrigatam anivus. What Beit Hillel, his madriga, what he's talking about, his angle is coming from an angle of humility. That's his midah. That the quality of Beit Hillel is humility. Va'anivus, right? He hamshacha mimala lamata. Anivus is drawing, is like awareness from above to below. It's drawing from above to below, right? Being aware of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He's mashpia everything upon me, that has to do with humility, right? With tefillah, right? As it says, Kamosha Amar, Ani ad daka eshkon, that I dwell ad daka until the lowest point, meaning Ani HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I dwell until the lowest point. That's the quality of Beit Hillel. Lekach omru heim de'inyan ner Chanuka hu hitrabut shefa chachma. That therefore they're the ones, Beit Hillel is the ones that said that the inyan of ner Chanuka is hitrabu shefa chachma. That this flow of the wisdom of chachma increases lahamshich mimala lamata. That increases from above to below. It's bestowed from above to below. Right? Like we said. Therefore, so they said the way you should light the menorah is you light another one every night. Because it's wisdom that's coming from above, and every night we're growing in that wisdom. Because you can't just shine all the light in one shot. In the darkness, you can't just like blast. It has to be slowly. You make it brighter and brighter because it's above to below. Kinyan Shamru Chazal, as it says, Kach hi geulatan shel Yisrael, bitchila kim'a ad holech ve'or ad nachon hayom. This is the way the redemption is going to be. It says in the Yerushalmi that initially it's going to be little by little, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu coming in until it's mamish like the most powerful light in the world, right? V'lekach b'yom rishon ner echad. Therefore, on the first night, one candle. That's tonight. Tonight, what symbolized tonight in our lives is the story of every single Jew in the world saying that I'm lighting one candle. I'm starting. I'm making a kli. I'm making a commitment that Hashem, I want to make a vessel. It's a small vessel, but it's a vessel. It's one candle. But that it's the direction pointing towards the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that I want to be a better Jew. But that increases. That makes a hachana for its neighboring vessel, meaning the next light, in order to receive more light. That's Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai, shemadrigatam gvurus. Now we know Beit Shammai, its madriga is gvura, power, right? Justice, right? Severity. Can know that as it's brought down. Shehu aliyah mimata lamala. That is an elevation from below to above. Just the opposite. Not like Beit Hillel from above to below, from below to above. Amru pochet v'holech. He says that every night you decrease. Dehine Kavod Kedushas Admor Zatzal. He says that my Heilige Rebbe said. Stamet's talking about the Avnei Nezer. Omar al Katuv, it says in the pasuk, Vehi ki zaken Yitzchak v'tichena einov mirot, that it says that Yitzchak's eyes, right, he became blind. It was hard for him to see. He became old. It was hard for him to see. Dehalo lo siper Katuv beganuta shel Yitzchak hashem. He says the Rebbe said that this is not talking about, it's not saying something negative with regarding Yitzchak. Oh, he became old. Nebuch, he became blind. What are you going to do? No, that's not what the Torah is telling us. It's not telling us anything negative about Yitzchak. Adarabba. Chazal darshu, that Chazal say in Gemara Yuma, Zaken Yitzchak Shahaya Zaken v'Yoshev v'Yeshiva. That what does it mean that he was old? It says that he was old because he was sitting in yeshiva and steiging. That's what it means. It wasn't a zaken like he was old. He was a zaken like we say, the zakenim, that he became a zaken, he became a Talmud Chacham because he was sitting in yeshiva. Im kain, so therefore, lama v'tichena einov mirot. So therefore the kasha is, so why should his eyes cease from seeing? That if zaken means that he became a Talmid Chacham, so adrabah, he should have the power of vision, he should be able to see. It says in Tehillim, Yoshet Choshech Sitro. Right? What does this mean? That that there's a certain opposite when it comes to Choshech. Demachmat Rav Haor, that because of the abundant level of light, Ef Sharla Abitzbo, it becomes so hard to look at it. Right? Like the sun, Lamashal, it's so powerful, such powerful light that you can't mamish look directly at the sun. V'lahasik bo klal, and let alone understanding it. V'lakach nikra choshech. That's why it's called choshech. V'yitzchak haita midata gavuros, that Yitzchak's quality was power, intensity. Right? Aliyah mala, that to complete, just growing higher and higher. Right? It was a very high level, tremendous power of gevura. Ubishvil zeh shahaya yoshe b'yeshiva, since that he was sitting in yeshiva, v'holech mimala lamala, and he was growing higher and higher in kedusha, ad shetichena einov mirot, until he was blind, he couldn't see. He was basking in so much light that his eyes couldn't handle it anymore. This is what the Rebbe said. This is the previous Rebbe, the Avnei Nezer. Now, so he says, now he plugs it into Beit Shammai. Let's see what it means to Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai shehoita midatam gevuras. But that Beit Shammai, since their quality is gevura, is power, is intensity, savri, they hold dimash adam holech lamala mitma'etet bechol pam hasaga. Well, the higher a person goes, the less he can comprehend. Why? Because there's so much light that he's facing, so the intensity is increasing, so he won't be able to handle as much light now. That's why they hold that every night you decrease the light a little bit. Because as if you're mamish merging with Hashem. You're, so to speak, like you're like leaving this world, so to speak. There's such intense light coming in. That the more light is coming in of wisdom into your brain, the more you actually realize that you mamish don't know. The more that you realize that your vessel is so much smaller. That's why he holds every night you do one candle less. Now. V'zeh sheramzu chazal petilot ushmanim shamru chachamim ein madlikim bahem b'Shabbat madlikim bahem b'Chanuka. It says in halacha, right, that the wicks and the oils that the chachamim have, that they said with regarding Shabbat, they have not permitted us to use them when it comes to Shabbat. Halachically, right? It says in the Mishnah. That it's brought down in Allah also, that we are allowed to use those wicks and those oils for Chanukah. Meaning it's not kosher for Shabbos, but it is kosher for Chanukah. What does this mean? Ve'ita b'svar mekadoshim, and the Heilige Svar mekadoshim say that what does this mean? Shekoi ala neshamos te b'Shabbos yefshar shetieh lohen aliyah. It's talking about for those souls that can't connect to Shabbos Kodesh. They're not drawn after the light of Shabbos Kodesh. What can they do? Right? The mamish don't feel that connection. That's what it symbolizes. The wicks and the oils that you can't use for Shabbos, meaning it's talking about those type of Jews that can't be ignited from Shabbos Kodesh. Uba Chanuka yesh lahem aliyah. But on Chanukah, they can have an aliyah. The light of Chanukah can lift them up. That's what it means. The Shem Shmuel says, "Ve'eino movin lama." The Shem Shmuel all of a sudden sits back. It's like Beit Shammai. Like I don't know what's going on. It's like pochad b'holech, like one candle less. He says, really, it's mamish such a deep concept that I have no idea what it means. It's so deep. What does this mean? Why? Lafia now that we said before, Yuvan Shaper, but he says, but you should know. Like one thing, according to what we said earlier, maybe we can make some sense out of this. That what does it mean? Shabbos nase or gadol me'od, that on Shabbos there's such a powerful light that's taking place. V'nishmos Yisrael nimshachim ba'olim achar or, and the Jewish souls are being drawn after the light. V'kidmiyon shemen hanimshach achar apetila, just like to compare like oil that is drawn after the wicks. Leitkarev v'likalel ba'or, that it comes closer and becomes included in the light itself. It says v'yesh neshamos shenitgashmu kol kach, but there are souls that they have made themselves so physical, so coarse, so into the derech of the sitra achra, of the other side, she'ein nimshachin achar haor, that they're not drawn after the lights. Like, what do you want from me? There's a lot of kids out there, that they're like, Rabbi, I'm mamish, like, what do you want from me? I don't feel it. I'm not drawn after the light. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? So he's saying there's a lot of souls out there that are like this. Vezeu petilot ushmanim shehein madlikim be'em b'Shabbos, and that's what it means, that those wicks and those oils that you can't use for Shabbos. Why? Mipnei she'ein nimshachin achar petila, because they're not drawn after their wicks. The oil's just sitting there. It doesn't follow the wicks. It doesn't go after the light. But however, when it comes to the Heilige Chanuka, right, the light of Chanuka, the Ora Oros, the light of creation, the hidden light of creation that's in our houses, that's in our world right now. But Chanuka Sha'or Yored, the Inyan of the light of Chanuka is that light Yored Mata, it comes to the lowest levels, lighted Bershus Arabim, lighted under 10 Tfachim. Under 10 Tfachim, usually the light of the Shechina doesn't come under 10 Tfachim. We know the minimum height of a sukkah is 10 Tfachim. A sukkah that's pachot miyut Tfachim is psula, is not kosher. So why? Because the Shechina, the Schach is the Shechina. If the Schach can't connect with the Shechina, then you got a problem. So it's got to be at least 10 Tvachim. But like the menorah mamish under 10 Tvachim. Why? Because the light of Chanukah is so powerful that it could come mata lemekomos hashvalim, to the most impure crevices, to the most impure areas of one's life. Umeir, and it can enlighten who? Af l'neshamos shenitgashmu beyoter. Those souls that feel that they've become so pulled after the Yetzer Hara, that could there be hope for even me? Yes, the light of Chanuka mamish could enlighten you too. Beyoter. Ve'im ach yesh lahem ma'at rotzon la'avodas Hashem. And how much more so that if then they have a little bit of will to just do avodas Hashem at all, just even slightly, then oz benakel, then how much more easier it'll be leitzloev, that they will be enlightened with the light of Chanukah, v'leitzidabek el kedusha, to attach itself to holiness. So that was the piece from the Heilige Shema Shmuel, right? Just to internalize a little bit. Like I was like, mamish, like such a powerful thing. Like it's giving.
I don't know how it's in America, but in Israel, a lot of traditional people, the lights of Hanukkah you would see in almost every window, as opposed to Shabbos.
Yeah.
America as well, I think.
Yeah.
Reformed,
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I'm saying, but even not just, right.
The bulbs.
Yeah, mamish. Yeah, either way, like either way.
No, but I'm talking not electrical.
Yeah.
Like
Electrical? Yeah, bro.
Not on Hanukkah. Shabbat.
Robert, does that mean that
I think so. Sure.
the menorah doesn't have to be seen? It could be on shades and still the light's going.
So I think it's talking about, the light of Chanukah is so powerful. There is an Indian halach that we have to do Persumi Nisa, that we have to publicize. The more that we could expose this light, the better. Why? Why is there an Indian to expose this light? Because this light can help so many people. So we want people to see this light. But that's the message. The inner message is that even for those souls that are completely lost, that usually they're not drawn after the aura. They don't feel that connection. The light of Chanukah can help them. How much more so if you already make a vessel, you already make some sort of connection to open yourself. Okay, let's turn to page 2. Okay, so this is a piece from Heilige Reb Nosson of Breslov. By the way, I picked this piece in Shem Shmuel. It was so geschmack. It was mamish a Breslover piece. You see it like hope and like fighting. Bringing the light. The Shem Shmuel, Shmuel of Sachachav. His Rebbe was. It was his father-in-law was. I believe was the Avnei Nezer.
Avnei Nezer.
Yeah, the Nos Desha was one of them. One was the Avnei Nezer. I forgot who was who. Okay, fine. Yeah, we got to sing also. So let's do this piece, and then we'll be mamshech and nigunim and jamming. And Mirz Hashem, there's going to be like a serious live jam session. Mamish. We're gonna break it down, if you know what I mean. So get ready. This is just getting the fuel. This is mamish. We're fueling up for the main show. Mirz Hashem. Okay. There's nothing like learning on Hanukkah. Okay. Here we go. Let's see what we can do here. Hadlokas ner Chanuka hu bechinas hamshachas asagas alakus al yidei tzimtzumim. Okay, that's the light of Chanuka. Really, what it has to do with is drawing the wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, through constrictions. And what that means, tzimtzumim, is that making it smaller in a way that somebody can understand, bringing the light of Hashem down to a lower level that it can actually ignite and lift up, like we saw from the Shem Shmuel, even Jews that are on a lower level, that it could be understandable. Shemisham ikar hadlakas kol oros va'neros de kedusha, that from there all the oros, all the lights and the neros of holiness become ignited. Bechinas la'anhara shargin, right, u'adlaka butzinin, that to light the candles, to light the candelebrums. Ki malchut Yavan harasha ratzta lahitgaber bechachmot chitzoniot, because the wicked Yavanim, they desired that they should overcome with secular wisdom, with chachmas chitzonius, bechinas chachmas Yavan, which is talking about the wisdom of Yavan, ulashkicham toratecha chas v'shalom, and cause the Jews to forget Torah, forget about that stuff. Why? Ki Torah hi ikar hachachma de kedusha, because you should know, Rav Nosson says beferish. You know, if you think that Breslov is all about dancing on top of a van the whole day, you have to see here. Beferish it says that ki Torah hi ikar hachachma de kedusha, because it's only through Torah, right, that you can get the main chachma of holiness. She'al yada zochin la'asagas elakus, that it's only through Torah that you could come to really understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Veheim rotzu la'ashkiach Torah, and they wanted us to forget about this Torah business. V'hamitzvos al yidei iskabrus chachmot yavon shalahem, that in order to push in their wisdom. Look at the Greek wisdom. This is fascinating. Forget the Torah stuff, right? Kamo achshav b'osinar rabim. Look, Rav Nosson saying even then, Rav Nosson saying like just like it is now, Bizman hazeh, right? Back there in Breslov, right? That what does it say? Shemit Gabrin ha'apikorsim, that there's such apikorsim in the world, you know? Lahamshich chachmas chitzonius b'olam, lashkiach haTorah legamrei, that they should forget about Torah, al yidei zeh, kenira b'chush, as we see. How much more so for us, right? He says you should know, and this is mamish back then in Europe, we're talking about 200 years ago. I'm saying how much more so now, like what's going on? It's mamish like how much it's overcome the world, right? That it says that someone that goes, that someone that goes in the way of the goyim, we see that he eventually he throws it all off. You know, it happens in stages, but he ends up that, you know, goodbye. Chas v'shalom. Aval Hashem yisbarach. But what did Hashem do? Hashem can't let this happen to his kindlech, right? He can't let this happen to us Yidden. So what did he do? He hiktim refuah lamaka. He brought the refuah, the healing, before the blemish, before the sickness. Va'asa imanu oz nes nifla v'nora b'mei matisyo. He made a miracle in the days of Matisyo. He knew that in the future there's going to be philosophy, there's going to be mamish Yidden going through colleges, and everything's stressed as like, you know, your academics and your achievements, and how much success, what your score is, and what your right or sports, or your, let's say, your financial status in society, and that's who you are, and it's mamish like that avodah zarah that we're exposed to. Ad shelo dai sheichniu veipilu malchus yavan legamrei, that it's not just enough that he had to mamish push down to completely to conquer malchus yavan, afgamim shichu or nifla ba'olam ledoros, but this light of he had to bring a light that would last for all generations. In order to draw this light. Every single Yid can draw this light in their house, in their place, not only on Chanukah, that's the Inyan of Chanukah. You can draw this light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into your life. Even he is the way he is, whatever sinner he may be, he could bring this light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his life. And this is what it means that we light the menorah. shekolel kol hayechudim hakadoshim, as it's brought down the Kisvei Arizal, that lighting the menorah includes within it all the Kabbalistic unifications, you name it. Anything that any Mekobel that stood on planet Earth until Mashiach comes, that what he could do with all his intentions and all the Yud Kei Vav Keis and every page, and you could stand there and be like, wow, look at that, it's amazing. He's like doing all these kavanas, is done through, the Arizal says, lighting the menorah. Kol echad beveto. Every individual, when he's doing that in his house, all these yechudim are taking place. Lamata me'asar tvachim. On like below 10 tvachim. It's mamish like, in the shmutz, right? Because this symbolizes the tzaddikim. They were able to draw such tikkunim into the world, right? Hashem sent the light of Chanuka, the light of the tzaddikim, they were able to accomplish this. The tzaddikim, through their efforts, they were able to channel this light of Hashem in the world. Ad shemeirim bechinas hasagas alakus al yidei tzimtzumim gam lamata, that they were able to bring tremendous, understanding of godliness from Hashem's crown into such low levels, right? They had to take it, they had to break it up, grind it, mix it, grind it up again, mix it with something else, until it could reach gam lamata b'tiyota tachtona ma'od, until our low levels down here in this world. Shebechinas lamata masar tfachim, that we're under 10 tfachim, so to speak. Shema'olam lo yarda shechina l'sham, that we know the shechina doesn't come there usually. Ki begodel kocham yocholim lahira afilu ba'aktanim ba'gerua ma'od, that with the power of the tzaddikim, it can enlighten even the most lowest, the most childish person, the most despicable person. Imrotzim lekabel. The key words is that if he wants to receive, that's the key. You just have to have a little bit of ratzon. That's the only thing you have to have, and then you could channel the light. Gam ki elach begetzal mavet lo irara ki ata imadi, as it says that even if I go in the valley of death, that I will not be afraid because you are with me, Hashem. The Eibishter is with me. Bebechinas ki eshe b'choshech Hashem orli. Let's do the next piece also. Chanuka, Purim, you should know, this is such a nachama, this piece. And Mirz Hashem, after this piece, maybe we'll do some nigunim. Actually, before this piece, I'll tell you a quick short story. Actually, not so short, but I'll just tell you anyway. So it says with regarding one time the Heilige Baal Tanya was taking a walk together with the Rebbe, the Heilige Rebbe, Rabbi Hakimian. They were walking together, and the Rabbi Hakimian was a contemporary to the Maggid of Mezrich. Right? There's the Maggid of Mezrich, and there was the Heilige Baal Tanya, and they were walking together. So as they were strolling, they had differences that the Baal Tanya held. He's very much connected to the way his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mezrich, was giving over Torah, which was tremendous. Long. Maimarim and Chasidus, he would explain really deep things openly. And Rabbi Hakimian was held that, hey, this is a little too intense. This is not the way of the holy Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov's way was to say shorter Torahs and to include, mashalim, to say stories, and to include the light, to write parables, to hide the light of the depth of the Zohar and Kabbalah in these parables. So they were walking together, we're talking about this, and as they were walking, they saw, it's a famous story, you guys might know, that they saw next to a garbage can, there was a page of notes that someone that was sitting in the shiur of the Maggid had written down notes, and this paper, it was on a piece of paper, and it was next to the garbage can. So Baruch pointed to the Baal Tanya, he says, you see, Zalman, this is what happens, with your Rebbe's Torahs, it ends up by the garbage can. So this is what the Baal Tanya said to him. Baal Tanya was very young. He said to him this mashal. It's a famous mashal. In Chabad, the mamish, they live on this mashal. It says that one time there was a king, and he had a son, and this was his only son. Unfortunately, what happened is that one day the son became sick. His mamish beloved son that he loves more than anything. Like the only flower in his life, so to speak, all of a sudden started dying, and the king was beside himself. He didn't know what to do, and he couldn't live with himself. He mamish hired every doctor, every specialist all over the world. Please heal my son, do something. They all said nothing. There's no hope. Finally, there was one wise man, this little beggar on the side. He said, "You know what? I have an eitzah." So the king says, what? And he says that you should know that I say that that you should take, there's a certain stone, that if you find this precious stone, if you take it, if you mamish break it up, you grind it well, you break it really fine, like the little crystals, tiny, if you mix it with water and honey, he says if you pour it over his mouth, he says maybe, who knows, like most of it might spill out, but there's one drop will enter, and if that drop will enter, that could give him chiyus. So he says, okay, I'm going to do it. So all the people, the advisors of the king, were like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time finding a precious stone, digging, hunting. Come on, who's this guy? Back and forth. The king's like, I don't care. He's like, if I don't have my son, I don't have a kingdom. What's it worth anyway? So they were mamish, like excavating everywhere, day after day, month after month. Finally, and the son's getting sicker. So finally, the king one day, he's so tired, he takes his crown off his head, he puts it on the table. And he's davening to Hashem, and he starts looking at the crown. He sees this crown. All of a sudden, he sees the centerpiece inside of the crown. He says that that fits into the description that the man was saying. He starts to look back and forth the description, and he sees that piece. And he says, maybe it must be that piece. He takes it to the wise man, and the wise man says, yeah, that taka is the piece. That's the stone. So he says he's going to do it again. Again, the advisors come and say, no, what are you doing? It's mamish, it's the most precious stone in the world. And who says what he's saying is true anyway? He says, again, no, it's not worth it. It's just to have life for my son. It's worth more than anything. He takes it, he mamish breaks it, he grinds it, he mixes it with water, with honey. And he puts it on the child's mouth. Most of it spills out. One drop, surely enough, gets in. The kid mamish is machai. He opens his eyes, he starts breathing again. And there was a tremendous simcha in the Malucha of the king. So the Baal Tanya looked at Baruch of Medjvez and he says it's true that what we're doing is that we're drawing from mamish the highest spheres of Hashem's crown. We're drawing from Keser, we're drawing from such things. You should know how much more so when we come us, that we learn the Kutim Maran, the Rebbe's Torah, that the Rebbe said that he says, I know where every tzaddik draws his Torah from. And he started describing certain tzaddikim. He said, Baruch draws from here. He says, certain tzaddikim draw from there. He says, I'm not interested in any of these sources in the spheres, in the supernal man. He says, I'm just interested in Atika, Setima, Kadisha, in the holy level of Keter, of Hashem's crown. So Balatani said to him, he says, yeah, it's true that we're mamish taking it and we're grinding it up, we're mixing it, we're bringing it down. He says, but this is surely enough, the only thing that could be Machaya, the son, the prince of the king, which is Am Yisrael. This is what the Jewish people need. They need this depth. They need to present it to them through tzimtzumim. And this is the light of Chanuka mamish. This is bringing the ore into all the Yechudim of the Arizal. Can you imagine? All the Yechudim are taking place with the light of Chanuka, that we light mamish under 10 tvachim, Bershutz Arabim, Ad Shetichla Regel Min Ashuk, it's mamish like, come on, it's like, yeah, that's what we need. We need the deepest light in order to enlighten us. And that's what we have. We'll do one more short shtickle and then we'll get ready for our music extravaganza. Okay. Chanuka Purim Heim Bechinas Mitzvahs Bikur Cholim. Look at this nechama. This is such a nechama, this piece. That Chanuka and Purim, you should know. What is it? Reb Nassim says it's Bikur Cholim. What's going on? Ki ikar mitzvahs Bikur Cholim machmas shach chola shochev al mitaso. The main mitzvah of Bikur Cholim is that the sick person is sleeping on his bed. Ve'ino yochel leithalech b'chutz. The sick man can't, nebuch, he can't walk outside. Right, so we go visit him. Al kein tzrichim leilech leveto l'sham shol l'sado. Therefore, the mitzvah is to go by his house, to visit him, in order to help him, to assist him. Ki gam hashchina kiviyachol yilamala mirashotov shelachola. That kiviyachol, it says that even a kodesh, even the shechina is resting above the chola's head. Kedei lachayota meor paneha, in order that it should give life to him through the or panim of a kodesh baruch hu. Bechinas, as it says, bor panei melech chaim, that even Hashem himself visits the sick person. Bechinas Hashem yisadenu al restavai, that Hashem helps us when, God forbid, when a person's on his sick bed. V'zeh bechinas Chanuka Purim. And Reb Nassim says you should know this Bikur Cholim is Chanuka and Purim. That why shenisyadu b'mei galusenu, because these holidays were established in Galus. Not when we were redeemed, not Matan Torah, not Shavuos, not Pesach, we're coming out of Egypt, right? Not Sukkot, we're the Anania covered, right? This is mamish. These are festivals of exile, of galus, mamish. We have to know that. It's tremendous power. Right? Sha'anu cholim. These are holidays that were established when we're sick. The Jewish people are sick. V'nit kaim ve'enam yacholim la'alos lebeis hamikdash. We can't go to the Beis Hamikdash. We're mamish on our sick bed. V'la'anos sham miziv or panav. We can't go to the Beis Hamikdash to have pleasure from the ziv of the Shechina Yisbarach. Al Kain, therefore Hashem had compassion on us. Chamal aleinu bal harachamim. The Bal HaRachamim had tremendous compassion. V'hosif lanu hayamim hakedoshim ha'elu, and He added these holy days to us. Chanuka uPurim, shehem daika b'mei hachol, that takes place in the weekday. Shezeh bechinas yemei hagalus, that these are dafka, specifically the days of exile. It's specifically established to be a weekday. We're all coming back from work. Well, mamish, it's vachadik, and we have Chanuka mamish right there. V'afal pichen Hashem yisbarach meir panav aleinu b'yamim ha'elu. Hashem's sending this tremendous light. It's a tremendous chesed. It's bikur cholim going on. L'chol echad b'toch beiso b'Chanuka. Hashem's coming to the house. He says, "You can't go out of the house. You're sick. I'll come to you." V'al yidei mitzvah sadlakas ner Chanuka, through this mitzvah of lighting the Chanuka light. U'vapurim al yidei mitzvah shavapurim shal yidei ze mamshichin oz v'chinas Kabbalah Satorah Machadash, that has such a power that on Chanukah and Purim that we can mamish have like a new Kabbalah Satorah, a new acceptance, a new commitment to Judaism. Bechinas kimu v'kiblu, as it says in the Megillah and other places, right? Kamam Rabbeinu Zal, that Chanukah is a complete ischachus. We have to know mamish. It's like a tremendous thing. What a chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu it is that Hashem visits every single one of us on Chanukah. It's such a personal level. If a Jew just wants to be, like, I'm over here, Hashem, this is my business, I keep religion like this, and, that's your area, and you keep your stuff, you heal the world and do what you have to do, and, like, we'll both do our stuff. It doesn't work on Chanukah. And Chanukah is very personal. It's mamish, Hashem's, like, in your face, being like, "What's up, buddy? Yeah, give me a hug. Come on. Like, don't do this. Don't stand too far. The whole year you're ignoring me. Give me a hug. That's what it is. Hey, how long could you be around, the same place with the same people, and mamish not get to know them? Hashem's the same way. He wants to get to know us on a deeper level. So He says, you know what? Forget all these restrictions. Forget all this, the Shechina is only above 10 Tvachim, all this, it doesn't come in the darkest galus, this, that. He says, I'm gonna break all the boundaries. I'm gonna surprise all the malachim. I'm gonna say, forget about everything, all the gedarim. I'm gonna send the or haganuz, the hidden light of the beginning of creation. V'yar Hashem et or kitov, the hidden light, the or haganuz. I'm gonna send it on Chanukah. It's gonna pass all the levels. It's gonna come into your house. You're lighting a candle, it's lighting up your whole Yiddishkeit. So Hashem should help us that mamish from tonight, we remember this. This is a storage. We're mamish putting more shemen in this first night of Chanukah by us getting together like this. We're mamish putting more oil into this first night of Chanukah, mamish, and it comes out. I think that we have a shiur hopefully on next Wednesday night. That's the 8th night of Chanukah, right? And Mitzvah Shem, which is right. It is, which is Zos Chanukah, and mamish, like what it says in Zos Chanukah, mamish, that it could be done a level of tshuva that one can accomplish throughout the days of the year, that in Mitzvah Shem one can accomplish when it comes to Chanukah, when it comes to Zos Chanukah especially. So God willing, so hopefully we will be able to get together to learn, to grow Mitzvah Shem when it comes to Zos Chanukah also. Okay, Shkayach, Gevaldik. Actually, we're gonna Mitzvah Shem. We're gonna play some music now. Please, take food. We're gonna Shalom Aleichem. Wow, pleasure. So nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to hear your lecture.
Yeah, mamish, like at the end, it's Baruch Hashem. All right, so let's sing something to bring some of this light down into our neshamas. Mitzvah Shem, we did a lot of Torah. We did Shema Shmuel, mamish, a whole piece in Shema Shmuel. We did 2 pieces from Likutei Halachas, and now you're here to draw it down into the neshama. It's a simon that you understand it all. You just have to mamish, just bring it into your heart. You know, they say by the, I just want to say Lakavad Gavriel, you know, a Halig, a friend of mine, that Rabbi Gavriel is involved with Kiruv and Esha Torah. So it says he understands all this stuff that we're saying already. You know, and I'm being serious. Like it says by the the Rebbe Reb Zusha that that the Maggid would start a Torah. It says the Maggid would say V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, right? So then all of a sudden Reb Zusha would start bugging out. He'd start throwing conniptions. Why? He'd be like, Gavalt, Hashem spoke to Basar V'dam. He would like mamish story like, oh my God, like it's great. So then they said he never heard a Torah from his Rebbe, the Maggid, because they had to carry him out every time he starts bugging out, right? So then one time Chassidim were there, and the Reb Zusha's name came up, so they laughed. They said, oh, he's a Meshugana. So then the Maggid got so upset. He says, you're laughing at Reb Zusha. He says, you should know every mimer that I say, if you miss the mimer, you could go ask Reb Zusha. He could tell you every single word. And like they're thinking to themselves, how could that be? But he's thrown out every time. And Kachava, they went one time. Somebody missed it. He says, let's try going to Reb Zusha. They tested him, and they said, well, what's the hazard on this place? They showed him the pasuk. So he says, this me. And he said over the whole mimer, mamish, bal peh. Even though he couldn't sit in the shiur, but he said because the Maggid said what I say that takes me 4 hours to explain to you guys, he gets in 3 minutes. He gets it, and he starts bugging out. So it's mamish, we have to know. So it's the first night of Chanukah, so it's all microcosm, it's all mamish. We're being exposed to this light, so hopefully we should be able to, to transfer it into our lives in a beautiful way. Mitzvah Hashem, that should lift up mamish the tachtonim under yud tfachim, the most biggest impurities. That it should be able to enlighten. Like these are festivals of Galus. That it should enlighten all the nefesh Bahamis. It should lift it all up, and we should see the Ora Oros Mashiach Tzidkenu Meheru Yemenu. Amen. Nu and again, what should we do? Let's do Yavanim. Now let's. Vanim Yavanim Nigvetu Alai Ahazai B'mei Chashmanim O Fartu Chamaz Migdalai Betimor Kol Hashmanim Yavanim Nigvetu Alai Ahazai B'mei Chashmanim Migdalai Betimor Kol Hashmanim Pshat in this song, Kila Olam Chazdo. Olam is also a lashon of helam, of hidden. That Hodul Hashem Kito, he's so great that why? Kila Olam, that even his chesed is even in the hiddenness, which is the light of Chanukah, even the deepest darkness, his chesed, his light, is still here. So I was wondering if what we could do is maybe we could sort of maybe sit in the middle, we could move the table back so we could all sit together more like, maybe we could dim the lights, we could hit some of the lights, we could mamish